All you have to do, believe. You have to do, believe. Believe. It's believe. 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 All you have to do, believe. You have to do, believe. Believe. It's believe.
I think this is fake.
You can't say that.
I can say that.
Wrestling's not fake!
It's still real to me, damn it!
The unscripted, uncensored, loose cannon of commentary. This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
The recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
You're listening to Marks on Commentary.
You're listening to Marks on Commentary. I'm Eddie Brophy.
I'm Jason Smith.
I actually had to go into the other room because Home Alone 2 is on right now, and I didn't want to get distracted. Last time Jay and I attempted to do a podcast while there was a movie we both liked on. We just wound up quoting Wayne's World for 15 minutes. So, and also because unlike many shows where Jason and I are either totally digressing or we're just kind of bitching and moaning about wrestling, there's actually a shit ton of topics to cover. Going back to, I had Jay over at my place, we watched Survivor Series. One of, I want to say maybe 3 times, and I've gone to pay-per-views with Jay. I've gone to his house. He's come to mine to watch numerous pay-per-views, probably say a dozen or so, maybe at this point. Mm-hmm. Maybe 3 times I can count where you and I both got up from the couch. Like we were little kids, like just like couldn't sit down with how excited we are.
Yeah.
Obviously, that being with Sting.
Yeah. Which was awesome.
And Lester, just so you all know, neither of us, at least I had no idea, because I know Jay's more, you listen to more of the wrestling podcast, like the You Shoot stuff and whatever you can. I had no idea that Punk was going to be on Cabana's podcast in a couple days later. So
no, it was funny. What was it? Thanksgiving Eve. Like I'm just up. I'm a night owl, and at like 3 a.m. I see all this activity online, and I'm like, oh fuck, he dropped a huge pop. I ended up staying up till like 5 in the morning listening to the whole thing, just because I had to know at that point. You know what I mean?
Well, I can say, I mean, I know that I'd actually question you about this because I'd given an email address, and I think it was was it last night they recorded?
Yeah.
I didn't hear the podcast yet, but did they release it yet? Have you heard it?
I did. It's a much different show. There isn't really as much. It isn't as juicy as the first one. They really don't touch up on questions directly because they were frankly surprised of how much reaction it got, which I don't know, kind of shocked me. Like, of course you're gonna get this kind of reaction. But they didn't really harp on anyone's questions, and they kind of like dismissed questions because they kind of felt like, I guess they were quoted as saying, like, one of the questions was, why is the Shield always wet when they come to the ring? Like, fans just poured out questions, like fandom fans, like, that don't understand like the business side of it, were just being like, throwing mark questions, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they kind of got pissed off and didn't really read anyone's questions directly.
So I have to, obviously, if you listen to it, I feel like if you had actually heard your question answered, I would have been one of the first people to know. I probably would have had a YouTube snippet or something. Jay probably would have submitted it to TV Tracks or something. But since I didn't ask you, what was your question going to be?
It was basically, after listening to the first episode, you get this weird feeling that when he walked away, he was just walking away for a few months and felt like I need a break. It didn't feel so much as he's gone forever. It felt as I'm gone. I can't be here right now. Maybe down the road we can figure out something. I feel like he's more pissed off he got fired than suspended and pushed to the side. I think he ultimately intended on coming back at some point.
Now, what I thought was interesting, because I didn't hear Jericho's podcast either, because I know Jericho said, and he had released like a snippet on YouTube, essentially trying to clear his name, because, Punk was kind of ambiguous when he said, I've had people that have pursued me for podcasts or whatever little projects, like, and it was kind of insinuating that Austin and Jericho, because who are the two wrestlers that we know so well that have successful podcasts? Obviously, Jericho and Austin. And he kind of insinuated that both of those guys had kind of pursued him to tell his story. And I remember actually, it even seemed like Hulk Cabana was kind of on the defensive too, because Mick Foley had tweeted something to the effect of like, good job landing the big one or something like that. And Cabana was quick to answer, this has nothing to do with landing the big one. I'm just letting my friend air his grievances. What were your thoughts immediately after hearing it? Because I had to listen to it a few times to kind of like wrap my head around it in terms of like, oh God, like this is. And I made a comment on Twitter the other night when Austin was interviewing McMahon on the network, like, this is probably the most exciting time to be a wrestling fan, because you don't realize, how, again, so many people, I'm not the first or the last to bring this up, but more people in the past, let's say, month have been excited about podcasts than they have the actual product.
Sure.
You watched the Austin interview. I was really, really surprised by how entertaining and how good that interview was.
Yeah, I even quoted saying 10 minutes before, like, all right, prepare to be let down, like, because everything to this point on the network has kind of been like the best thing they did was like the ECW Exposed, and even that was kind of like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like as juicy, and you're like, oh wow, there's so much detail. It was like, yeah, if you've been around and you've read some stuff or you've listened to some stuff, you've heard all this before. So,
well, the biggest disappointment that I had was it was as close to Vince McMahon doing a You Shoot interview as you could possibly get, and there was no hoe bag.
A Biggs Batista's dick question.
No, I was genuinely. Obviously, I'll get more into the CM Punk interview. I had said on our Twitter account that, like, to be honest, like, if Vince could have been all business and he could have just said no comment. He didn't. He apologized to Punk. And I think that was a very sincere apology.
It's funny, though, when you listen to the recap this week, Punk kind of makes you go the other way again, where you're like, yeah, that is kind of shitty, because they knew. There's no way they didn't know.
Right.
He told Hunter 2 days before his wedding, hey, I'm getting married. And then he said he got an overnight FedEx signed from the day before. So they knew there's knowledge of when his wedding day was. So Punk thinks that's very like corporate publicity stunt, like
really
he gave. Yeah, he's not buying it. And Andy said, which I kind of agree. He's like, if Vince felt bad, they knew because AJ had taken the time off and everything like that. So they knew that he was upset too, because he had told AJ, and I'm sure they knew it wasn't the point of the podcast that it came out. Like Vince knew prior to that as well that all this shit had happened and never called him to apologize like a man or come to his house. He said.
Right.
So I don't know. It makes you go the other way. You're like, well, yeah, Vince would say the corporate thing.
I don't know. Like I'm on the fence, because there are two sides to every story, and it's kind of up to this point. Yeah, one of the big things, and I know Kevin Nash had weighed in on this when I forget what the occasion was. I think it was when he came back to WWE during SummerSlam, and he had said that the most difficult thing is that people can't separate Vince McMahon the person from Mr. McMahon the character. And obviously, I that was the really cool thing about that interview that I enjoyed, was that McMahon really seemed to be opening up to Austin, essentially just about his life, like where he came from, why that character meant so much to him, why that rivalry meant so much to him. I mean, I don't really know personal politics aside backstage because I don't work for WWE. And the things I've read, I mean, from former writers and stuff like that, take it with a grain of salt because I don't know anyone personally who ever worked for WWE. I mean, I only know what I've read and what I've seen in YouTube interviews that it really could go either way. I mean, I'm definitely trying to be really not partisan here as a Punk fan, but also as a fan of WWE. I mean, it's easier to side with Punk right now for a lot of people, I think, because the product is so shitty right now.
True, but after listening to his, and I know you're gonna relate to this too, is you may have had preconceived perceptions of like, well, why did he leave, and was it right or not? After listening to that, I immediately understood how he felt because I thought about, me and you have both had pretty prominent jobs in the Boston area.
Right.
And now I kind of think there's no amount of money that would make us necessarily go back. The opportunities, things that were kind of hinted upon but not followed through. Like, I immediately related to everything. I was just like, yeah, that's me. That's kind of Eddie too. So I don't know.
No, I mean, I definitely, I think that was the thing. And funny enough, what I was going to write, I never got the chance to because that was kind of like, man, they're probably going to answer it anyway. One of the things that I was going to write, and not to sound like a sycophant, not sound like I'm kissing his ass or anything, was I was actually going to thank him for doing that because one of the things, and it's recorded, that I've said on this show was that I was pissed off at Punk. I didn't feel like he owed me anything, so I bought a T-shirt. Big fucking deal. You know what I mean? I bought tickets to go see him. He doesn't owe me anything, but I was really upset because I wanted an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that and then some. So I just kind of wanted to thank him for at least, taking his time to figure out when a good opportunity would be to let everyone know, like, hey guys, I didn't mean to leave you hanging. This is what happened. This is what's been going on. Take it or leave it. If you don't like what I'm saying right now, fuck you.
Yeah. And it makes sense too that he was legally unable to at the time.
Right.
So.
Well, because for us fans too, there's that wishful thinking as a wrestling fan.
Oh yeah.
Because this sort of thing happens all the time. But then again, Jericho leaves in 05. He's come back. He's come back multiple times. I mean, the Self-Destruction, the Ultimate Warrior DVD.
Exactly.
That's all I can really say is nobody expected Warrior to not only go in the Hall of Fame, but almost eulogize himself the night before his death. And Bret Hart, like, there are just certain cases in that company where people, Hulk Hogan's another big example. They disappear, or they have a falling out with Vince. Undertaker is another one of those guys. So for me, it was, you were still kind of stuck in that kayfabe where you were like, all right, if he's just retired, this is bullshit. Just make your retirement speech and like give us closure. So Jay and I aren't every week being like, all right, well, here's another Punk scenario, or
Yeah. I mean, it is disappointing because he is one of my favorite performers, but now I kind of feel like, okay, I can walk away, like, and not feel like, what the fuck happened? Like,
there is a bittersweet quality to it though, because like I said, Survivor Series was one of like 3 nights where you and I both were standing next to each other, just staring at the TV, like, oh my God, like totally invested in something.
mm-hmm.
And then it was business as usual the next night.
Yeah.
So it's a bittersweet thing because you and I both, I was going to be my next question. Did you get any closure? Well, obviously it sounds like you did. The problem with the closure is just now it's like, all right, Punk is gone.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have left?
Yeah. It's weird. And, after Survivor Series, it was like, maybe Ziggler, maybe there is chance now for him.
I mean, that's the thing. I don't want to discredit the ones that stuck around, the ones that are still in the company, because Ziggler, I'm still a big Ziggler fan, always have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so awesome that he got to be the sole survivor in that match.
So unexpected, so deserved it, and it elevated him in like one night. I just hope they continue it and help follow through with it.
Now, the other interesting thing in the McMahon interview was that Austin had addressed Cesaro.
Mm-hmm.
And, Vince kept giving answers like, well, we're just not there yet. We're not there yet. But I seem to remember Cesaro was red hot until they aligned him with Heyman.
Mm-hmm.
And even Austin touched upon that, where it was basically like you threw him with a guy, now he's guilty by association. And he was kind of organically becoming a face after he split from Swagger.
Mhm.
Audience have pretty much decided, like, we like this guy, we're going to cheer him. And I remember even saying to you when he was aligned with Heyman, I'm like, how the hell is this going to work? Like, Heyman represents a competitor who just ended the streak.
Mhm.
Anything that touches Heyman at this point is instant heat.
Yeah.
Why would you do that to Cesaro? And I mean, they didn't even really follow through with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. And go back to Punk's podcast and what he's pissed off is like there's no planning ahead. It's month to month where it's like we're gonna do this because this right now could be the biggest thing we do, and if it messes up, we don't have any alternatives or we don't necessarily know where this is even going. Like if I say to you right after WrestleMania, Cesaro is gonna be with Heyman, you go, well, what does that mean about Brock? And eventually are they gonna face off or something?
Right.
That's not happening. So
Well,
what's the point?
one of my favorite things about being a wrestling fan in the 21st century, aside from the fact that it's the Wizard of Oz syndrome, now we know the wizard's just a guy behind the curtain. So wrestling, there's just that element of surprise, with the exception of like when Jericho came back to the Rumble and obviously against Sting. But everybody kind of had an idea that Sting was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So much that we were all teasing each other with these different, like, my favorite was the Survivor Series ad with the actual performer Sting on it. And I think that's the best part about being a wrestling fan now, the memes and pictures that have circulated since Punk's interview. Oh my, like there's the one of Kane, because all these fans were like, after he explained the whole thing with the staph infection, and they had a still from Survivor Series of Kane, and it looked like he had a similar, like a bubble on his back.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone took the liberty of like photoshopping Punk's face on it. Oh, it's the funniest goddamn thing I've ever seen. And it's different, it's snarky, but there's a part of me that kind of likes the internet. I mean, the IWC, as they're called, and they're just regarded as like the lowest common denominator. But you have to admit there are times when, I mean, it is what it is. My favorites have been like someone says something shitty about Punk, and then you'll see a meme with CM Punk, and it'll be this post gave Punk a staph infection, or you kind of just have to roll with it as a fan. Like I enjoy the humor that people are just kind of making light of it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing, is it's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan because now there are so many different places to go. It's exciting, but it's also kind of shitty to think about that the Punk interview with Cabana, the Austin interview with McMahon, like those two things alone have been far more entertaining than 3 hours of Raw.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing now, is like, I remember thinking after the Punk interview, like, why is WWE not capitalizing on it? Do you realize how much money you can make out of like just taking a feud from a podcast and and even in the Austin interview, I noticed that Austin was pointing out how many writers WWE has and how he was dumbfounded by how convoluted the creative process is now versus when he was a superstar. And that was the other thing I was thinking, is like, how are there no good ideas if you have a staff of like, say, 20 writers?
Because everybody's trying to keep their job and trying to appease Vince. You know what I mean? It's not what's best for the company. It's what's best to keep my job and keep Vince happy.
Right. I don't know. I was just, there was just a lot. And I just think it's funny now because nobody really, back when we were fans, and obviously it was getting different because there was the internet. So you had WrestleZone and Dirt Sheet websites and, Pro Wrestling Illustrated and those kind of magazines and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I feel like now, I don't know, I almost feel like kayfabe isn't a thing anymore because the genie's out of the bottle. Everybody knows it's fake, and and it's exciting, but it's also kind of like, like when you listen to the podcast, because Jericho will talk with the boys and you get these amazing stories. And I'm wondering, to keep that element of surprise, like, what do you do now?
I don't know. I almost say lean into it. Like, that everybody knows that the wrestling world is like this. Talk more candidly. It's like if two superstars legitimately don't like each other backstage, talk about that on TV.
Well, I think that's where we were getting with Punk when he was in that feud with Triple H and Kevin Nash and stuff. Like, all the remarks he was making about like Super Shredder and just like the elements of real life that they were putting into, and that's why, you know, people were coining the term like this is the reality era of wrestling, where we don't have like the cheesy Undertaker is, you know, a dead magician sort of, you know, things. I don't know. And I'm kind of curious now, is like with everything that we know from Punk's interview, did it ever stop and make you wonder how much life there is left in pro wrestling? Because I mean, it comes up occasionally with people I know who are, you know, casual fans or used to be hardcore fans. And like the big thing that always comes up is like, Eddie, how long do you think this is going to keep being a thing? Like, do you ever like kind of picture 10 years from now that WWE, like there's just no such thing as wrestling?
I think there'll always be something as, you know, as wrestling, but as big as WWE. I think they're set for a while. I think it's going to take a long time before they're not anything close to what they are. But I don't know, like, how long can you look at the formula and restart? Because that's what it almost felt like when Punk left, where it's like, my guy's gone. I have to restart, like, from nothing. Like, you know what I mean? And find that young prospect where you're like, okay, I want to see him rise up and be a good star, and, you know, find the guy that's got the good promo, and, you know, he rises, and I don't know. It's frustrating sometimes where you're just like, I don't know how long I could put up with that.
Well, the other thing too that I'm kind of thinking about, and I mean, I'm still a fan. Don't get me wrong, of Sting and his, you know, his introduction to WWE. But does it ever kind of piss you off that the people we're getting excited about are still like the 40, 50-year-old veterans? Like, we don't really seem to get excited about the newer guys. We're always getting excited about like the veterans, though.
Yeah, no, that's true. But that generation is kind of done now. I think
Right.
Sting ushers in that last era of, you know, attitude era veterans that are around. Like, after Sting, who's the next big star after Sting?
I mean, I think at this point, I mean, Sting was almost kind of like the missing link, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really like the big guy in WCW. I mean, with the exception of Goldberg, and we all know how the Goldberg thing ended. I mean, I think if you were going to have two guys that everybody wanted to see in WWE when WCW was finished, was you wanted to see Goldberg and you wanted to see Sting. I mean, I personally, that's just my opinion. I mean, there could be other people that'd be like, oh, what about this guy and what about that guy? But for me, as far as like marquee names, it was Goldberg and Sting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a bummer because not that I necessarily even think it'd probably be a good match, but there was always that. I remember in like '99, like what if Stone Cold and Goldberg ever, you know, came face to face? Like, what if they ever went to blows? Like, and again, I think a big part of what's missing in the new generation is like, and we've talked about this before, is there aren't any real big dream matches right now for me.
Yeah, there are very few left that are like, oh wow. But like, if you look at the current roster, like, what's that dream match that you're like, hey, this guy and this guy someday, that's gonna be awesome.
Right. I mean, what are your thoughts too? Because I know people are. It just seems like almost unanimous how people feel about this, but the WWE World Heavyweight Champion has not been on television in months.
Mm-hmm.
How are they making that work?
Patchwork each month, like, I don't know, delaying main events. That it's like, and the other thing that goes along with that, it's like, does it really need to be Cena 3 times before Roman Reigns takes the belt at Mania? Like,
Well, I'm wondering
that
about
drives me nuts. But
with the new stipulation they added at TLC that if Cena loses, he loses number one contendership. I mean, is that something that you think they put out there to appease people like us who are kind of like, really, Cena again? Or do you?
Possibly, but I think it's also what gets them to the next month.
I was gonna say, is there a possibility that Seth Rollins could win? And I mean, I still think even the whole idea of him carrying out a briefcase has been kind of silly, considering there's no champ to get. I remember that was the best part of like before you showed up, and like Nina and I were watching the network and we were making food, and they were doing like, you know, the replays and the promos and stuff. And she was like, so this Money in the Bank thing, he's got the briefcase, he can cash it in and get a title shot whenever he wants, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole deal. She's like, okay, cool. Do you think he's going to do that tonight? No, I know he's not going to do that tonight. Well, how do you know? Babe, the champion's not even in the build. He's not even in the same state. And she just had this like really dumbfounded look on her face, like, well, how does that work? Like that's exactly why we're all angry right now. It's like, why is this guy and they're constantly calling him Mr. Money in the Bank, Mr. Money in the Bank. You don't even have a champion.
Yeah.
Or rather, you have a champion and he's nowhere to be found.
I don't know. It does kind of make it special for Brock. Like when he shows up, it's like, oh wow, I'm interested in seeing this because, Randy Orton worked every single show last year basically, and by the time they got to WrestleMania, it's like, oh fuck this guy, I'm so sick of him. But now it's like, hey, Brock hasn't been here, even if I don't love the idea of Cena 3 times, but it's like, okay, it has my attention because something important could happen.
Right.
But
I think what I'm bummed out about is if the champion wasn't going to be on TV, and this is the problem I think with the US and the Intercontinental titles being around. I feel like if you're not going to have your World Heavyweight champ, the Intercontinental belt should have main evented something.
yeah,
I could be very much alone in that theory, but I feel like the Intercontinental, that's like the next belt.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that should have just as much significance. If your champion's off television with his belt, why are we not making stars with the next guy in line?
Yeah.
And that possibly could be because Rusev has the title. I don't know, but
I will argue that they have made a stronger presence on the show in the last, 8 months than they have in the past 3 years.
no, I mean, I'll give you that too. I'm just like, I don't know. And even in Survivor Series, and one of the things that you and I both commented on was the tag match. The tag match was actually pretty solid.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. And, Miz makes the perfect tag team partner.
I will say that I've been more amused by Damien Sandow in the past like maybe 3 months than I had been since they kind of killed his push when he was Mr. Money in the Bank.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and I hate the Miz. Don't get me wrong, and I will argue that point until I'm blue in the face just to piss Catherine off. I hate the Miz, but I think they finally found a gimmick that kind of suits him.
Yeah.
I still think it's hysterical that you have a guy who's supposed to be this big movie star, and really he's only done like the WWE films in the real world. I'm just
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of wondering what's next.
I don't know. You look towards WrestleMania. I'm trying to figure out matches now because it's going to happen real quick, but I don't know. Do you have any like preconceived notions of matches that you kind of like looking at and like, oh, this could be something?
Well, as of now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think it's looking more and more like it's gonna be Triple H and Sting at Mania.
Okay.
In terms of like, now I'm curious because if you have Sting at WrestleMania, is he gonna be in the main event or is he gonna be on like, the second to last match?
I think, yeah, you get second to last.
I mean, which if that's the case, now let's hypothetically say Daniel Bryan is healed up, and I'd imagine he's healing enough that, I mean, putting him back on television in like a GM. And by the way, I think the anonymous Raw General Manager thing. Why did they bring that back?
I don't know. Like, you wonder if it's to kill any like momentum because it's like if he had just shown up at the Rumble, like people would have fucking lost their minds.
Right.
But now it's kind of like, all right. I don't know.
I think they did that too because that's the thing is like I wouldn't say he can't be 100% healed if he's not in an in-ring capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good question to ask then. Do you think that bringing Daniel Bryan back to television this soon, do you think they did it because the roster's so thin, and do you think it's going to hurt if you were to come back at the Rumble?
I don't know if it's because the roster was thin. I think it was just a shock moment, but I think it's also to kind of take out the steam from if he had just shown up.
Right.
It's one thing if we haven't seen him in, I don't know, when was it last night? Money in the Bank, so that's like 6 months ago.
Right.
But it's another thing. It's like, okay, he's at the Royal Rumble, but we kind of just saw him, I don't know, 2 months ago.
I definitely, if he comes back and if he's definitely going to Mania,
mm-hmm.
Do you have him win the Rumble this year?
I want him to. That's my like holdout hope is that Brian. All this is a work for him to come out at number 30 in the Rumble. But
Well, that's what I mean, though. If you could pick a Royal Rumble winner now, who would be like your top two guys? If you were like, I would want this guy to win or this guy.
Brian, I think Brian makes the most sense from a storyline arc where it's like he's been away, he never lost the title, and for the fact that Brock and Brian, I think would be a fucking awesome match.
Right.
But second in line, I guess it is Reigns because there isn't anybody else that it's like I don't know, like nobody else on the roster has that kind of push unless it's Ziggler. But even that's kind of
I was gonna say I think my offshoot would be Ziggler.
yeah. I kind of look at the Team Cena situation with Ziggler winning as they're gonna push for Ziggler and Cena at WrestleMania.
Do you think?
With Ziggler being a heel, I kind of think this is all leading back to a heel Ziggler again.
Really? That's an interesting approach.
Who's Cena gonna work with this year? Who in the roster hasn't he kind of done everything that he possibly could with?
I mean, unless they try to work in like a Triple H Cena, because that's what threw me up when Vince said that Cena was the only man that had the power to bring back the Authority.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of led me to think like, is this going to be like a power struggle match where Triple H tries to get him and step back into the fold in a match of Cena Mania, where if Triple H wins, he gets his job back, and if like kind of like career versus career thing, like if Cena wins, Triple H is done. If Triple H wins, Cena's done.
Yeah, but then you got to ask what
That-
happens to Sting. Like,
Yeah.
is it going to be Taker? I really don't see that happening now. I kind of am in
It
this
seems
mindset.
like
that
It's like Taker's done.
yeah, at least for this year. Maybe in a slight chance because they are doing that giant arena in Texas next year and Taker's home city that they push for one more Taker match with Sting after because that was the thing that you walked into with the situation with that you walked in with the Undertaker Sting match where it's like do you make the guy that just lost to Brock at WrestleMania lose twice in a row or do you make the guy that just stepped in from WCW that we want to hype as this awesome thing is he the guy to lose? It's a lose-lose situation for both characters.
Right.
But this way, Sting has a win. You get that out of the way, and now you go into a fresh match where it's like, who's gonna lose?
Well, you were saying too before, I believe it was before we started recording, that Sting's contract said something like he's got what 5 or 6 appearances.
6 appearances, and he's used one for Survivor Series already.
Yeah, so he's got 5. So you'd imagine, in order to keep that character relevant, he's got to come back at the Rumble. I mean, between Survivor Series and Mania, as Vince had put, he'd expect Sting in a WrestleMania capacity. So if Sting's going to make an appearance in Mania, what makes the most sense between now and then to get him to Mania? And it's probably going to be the Rumble. I mean, that's another thing. If Sting comes back, does he wrestle? Does he do a run-in? Is he in the Rumble? Like, how do you use Sting?
I don't think you make him wrestle until Mania. I think that's the money. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
You can't put the genie back in the jar once you take him out. If he sucks months before, people be like, "This is gonna suck." Like, you can have him do all his signature moves and stuff like that, but getting him in a one-on-one match where he's got to go 15, 20 minutes, that's not going to help anything.
Well, I mean, let's go back to the Undertaker Sting thing, though. So if Sting doesn't wrestle until Mania and he sucks, is it better to have him suck at Mania and then be like, all right, this didn't work, our little Sting experiment, it got buy rates for curiosity's sake, but it didn't pay off? Or do you try him out at, say, Rumble and have him wrestle? If he sucks there, then they're like, all right, well, maybe we need to work with him more. Maybe we just scrap Mania. Like, is it better to get him at Mania and have him suck there than it would anywhere else?
I do think it's Mania.
Yeah.
I'd rather him suck there,
Well, I mean, even with Undertaker, even if Undertaker and Sting sucks, is it better? Is it kind of like the Brock Goldberg thing? That match sucked, but it had so much momentum going into it that it was almost like, well, if they did this match before Mania, it wouldn't have worked because at least in Mania they sucked on a big scale. I terrible way to word it, but
yeah, I'm with it. But I don't know. It doesn't do anything for Sting if he loses or if he even performs like before Mania.
I mean, that leaves me with like, so you got Roman Reigns. You know, they've been rumored that he's going to go to Mania and he's going to win the title there and he's going to have his Daniel Bryan moment. And then you have Daniel Bryan, who it's like, all right, well, what are you going to do with him? You got Ziggler, and you already put Cena and Ziggler. That would make the most sense, I would think.
Yeah.
But then when you do with Dean Ambrose and Bray Wyatt,
I don't know what you do with Bray Wyatt. Well, no. I was gonna say Orton, but I'm pretty sure we're probably gonna get Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton at Mania.
so what do you do with Dean Ambrose?
I might say flip him and have him and Bryan go at it.
I mean, that might be interesting, but I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only thing that I'm wondering about is how that would work.
I don't know. If there's anybody that could, you're gonna need some guys to flip here. So
Right.
there's, the heels and the faces matches have already been kind of done to death. Like, Bray Wyatt against who? Is there really anybody left that he hasn't worked with in the last year?
Well, that's what I'm thinking about. Is like, what in God's name do you do with Bray Wyatt?
Unless it's like a Ziggler situation, but it really gets convoluted. Like,
I mean, this is when Austin was talking about NXT and he referred to it as FCW, which I thought was funny. You can tell how far removed Austin's been. And he was kind of like looking at Vince, like, Vince, the roster's kind of thin, man. Like, when are we going to get more like FCW guys? Because you and I are going through names already, and it's kind of like, not sound stupid here, but it's almost like the general manager mode of like SmackDown versus Raw 2006. And I've never won that mode. I literally, since I've owned the game, I've never won, because you try to build up these big, like, phenomenal matches, and then you lose guys because their contracts are up or they're too hurt or whatever. And I literally, watching the product now, is like, oh my God, this is like watching me trying to be the general manager of fucking Raw. I'm losing all my guys because they're either like, and it's funny because when you go in the alumni section on the WWE.com website, like, RVD's back in the alumni section. So is RVD all done?
I think for now.
Yeah.
But that's a guy that I'm like, They haven't used him right since they brought him back.
Well, it's like Batista at this point. Like, I don't even think it would. I just don't think it would make sense. I mean, Chris Jericho, yeah, you could bring him back again, but who the hell is Chris Jericho going to wrestle?
Jericho is kind of like the spare tire that you use when you need him. It's like you can get, a fifth main event WrestleMania match out of him, but
well, at this point too, and it's not because I love Jericho. Jericho has been my favorite since day one, but I think even Jericho knows now that he's kind of like on a per diem basis with WWE. Like, he'll get the phone call where it's like, "Oh, Chris, we're dying over here. Can you come over and put some guy over?" Okay, I'll do that. It's not like you're ever going to see Jericho hold the title again, and I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it, but I wouldn't want to see Jericho hold the title again. He's done what he's done. And like, Jericho's one of the few wrestlers where, like, if I never saw him again, it wouldn't bother me because I'm so happy with what he's done. If that makes any sense. Like, I'm happy with how they've used him and what he's done. Like, that was a big argument in a lot of forums after the Punk podcast, was people comparing Jericho to Punk. Well, Jericho's done this, this, and this, and part of me was like, yeah, I mean, it sucks if it wasn't so fucked up backstage. There was a lot of stuff I would have loved to have seen Punk pull off. But I also don't want to say that the future of pro wrestling is contingent on one superstar. Yeah. That's not fair either, because that totally sullies guys like Bryan and Ziggler and, Bray Wyatt and, I mean, Dean Ambrose. So it's not like I've still watched the product since Punk's been gone, but there's the excitement isn't there. Yeah.
I just think it's seeing how one guy can break from the pack and how he's treated. You know what I mean? He wasn't a WrestleMania main eventer before his pipe bomb, but he got close to that level but never made it. So it's like, what does that say for any member of the current roster? It's like, could you work any harder than Punk did and break through? Where it's like, Bryan did it, yes, but after that, it's like a short name of list. And I think Punk said it best. He's like, Vince, how many main event wrestlers or WrestleMania main event wrestlers are on this current roster,
Right.
and there are very few.
Well, I did agree with him with a lot of the comments that he was making about Batista and Brock Lesnar. Like, all right, Vince, where are they going to be tomorrow? Where am I going to be?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Sure.
And that was a difficult podcast to listen to. And I mean, again, I got what I wanted. And I suppose that's the whole thing, like the saying, you know, careful what you wish for. Because then as soon as I heard what he was saying, I'm like, it was difficult to watch Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were just kind of looking at it through his perspective of like, oh God, like they really are like burning themselves out and they don't know what they're doing. And, you know, again, it is depressing to be like, you know, I remember you showed up for Survivor Series, you were decked out in punk wear. Like Jason still has his guy. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could have broken out the X-Pac wear, but I mean, that's the thing is like, who's my guy now? Like, but mind you, too, I do want to bring up that Punk has on our site. So if you have any, quote Chevy Chase from Christmas Vacation, if you have any last minute gift ideas, WrestlingTees.com, Mark's on commentary. We still have our shirts up there. I took a look at the Punk store. You weren't as impressed by it as I. There was like, you know, there was like a shirt or two. I'm like, oh, that would be kind of cool to own. Like the Black Flag one with CM Punk. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't completely. Like, I was expecting something like, oh my God, like the best kind of Punk merchandise you could hope for.
Yeah. And there are other, it's not like I haven't seen other shirts that are on that site where I'm like, oh, wow, these are all cool. Like, there are some really cool shirts on there, but I just kind of felt like the ones to start, I wasn't enamored with.
But I feel like that's the same way it's been for wrestling merchandise for a long time now. I mean, even, again, some of the best stuff that I ever owned or ever wanted to own was a lot of the old Austin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still on eBay constantly looking for like the old ECW stuff.
Yeah.
Bar none, I think they had probably some of the best merch that you've ever seen. I mean, 90s WWF, they had some good shirts. Like there's some vintage like Triple H shirts that if I ever found them at like, you know, a thrift store or on like a website, I'd probably want to own them.
Yeah.
But
the big thing is with me, like, no faces, no picture faces. Like if it's an animated cartoon face, that's one kind of thing.
yeah.
But I don't know, it just needs to be something like cool. Like Kevin Nash, I think, put it best. He's like, when they were figuring out the NWO design, it's like this should be a shirt that like anybody would want to wear. Like a fucking guy on his motorcycle wants to wear the NWO shirt, or
Right.
just anywhere in public. Like if you got it, you're like, wow, that's a cool looking shirt.
Well, that's how I felt about the DX jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me was kind of a universal jersey. Like that'd be a jersey that like anybody would want to wear just because it looked fucking cool.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the old Austin shirts, like the my favorite, and you did the design for our shirts, the Bloody Austin one. To this day, still like one of my favorite shirts. I mean, well, that brings me on to my next point because we only have about, you know, 10, 20 minutes or so. Christmas is coming up. Do you, as a wrestling fan, is there anything wrestling related that you could hope to ask for this year?
I don't know. Like, there's no like sexy gifts, like
Sexy.
DVDs, like the Macho Man. I watched some of that. That was pretty interesting. I wouldn't mind having that in my collection.
You know, actually really bummed out about, and just because the first one sucked so badly.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Attitude Era Volume 2 DVD?
I have not.
I've gone through the list. Why was that not the first Attitude Era DVD set?
Beats me.
That one actually seems like it's like a far cry from what the first set was.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be one that like, oh shit, that's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I bought the wrong Attitude Era DVD. Like that would probably be on the top of my list. Is I would love to own the volume, and that says a lot considering that, you know. Oh, hold on. We have a guest.
Hello.
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 Sean has just joined us 45 minutes into this podcast.
I'm sorry. I was in the middle of something and I felt my phone vibrate and I'm like, "What is this?" And I looked down and I'm like, "Oh shit, I can't do this right now."
It's all right. We'll catch Sean up to speed here. Sean, we were discussing. Did you watch the McMahon Austin podcast?
I sure did.
What were some of your thoughts on that?
I honestly was really glad that they didn't, pull a a corporate thing where it's just like, okay, Stone Cold, you can't ask these questions. And then he'd be like, shit, son, this is my podcast. I can ask whatever I want. So, but it was good. It was good that it stuck to his formula of Stone Cold's going to ask whatever he wants to ask because he's Stone Cold Steve Austin, damn it. And it was good to see that he was actually asking the boss these questions. And like I told Jason, like right after, or I think it was in the middle of the podcast going on or whatnot, I basically said Stone Cold's basically saying to Vince McMahon, your company sucks. Why?
I was saying the same thing a little earlier on with Jason, that we were talking about the Punk podcast and we were talking about the Austin one. And I Punk did the second podcast. I haven't heard it yet. Jason had listened to it. Punk had basically said, like, when Vince apologized, like, oh, that's a very corporate answer. But I was kind of getting to that point where Jason was. It kind of seemed like Austin was taking shots at Vince, being like, dude, why's your company suck?
Yeah.
Did you remember, like, the quote, and I mentioned this to Jason, like, how the writing staff consists of like 20 or 30 people now?
Yeah, I thought that was a little ridiculous because, and then Stone Cold would go on to mention how it was like maybe just like 3, maybe 4 guys back in the day. And I think that's why the product, especially like the past, I don't know how many years, has just been so all over the place because they always have different hands, in the pot, so to say, like coming up with these stories where they'll be completely pointless like 3 months from now. Because, and it seems like the WWE's mentality now, superstar wise or storyline wise, is that they all end up having Alzheimer's in 3 months. Where they completely forget, oh, I had a feud with you 3 months ago, but that's okay. I'm going to like team up with you now.
Well, I mean, do you guys remember when Triple H, he had the match with technically his second match, but they were like billing it as his first WrestleMania match with Taker. Mm-hmm. And he did the speech in the middle of the ring, like he was talking about how, his match with Taker went. He was like, and I wrestled Taker at WrestleMania before.
Yeah.
But what he did was almost like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't. If they've been watching the product, they know we had a match years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm still kind of, I love the interview, don't get me wrong, but a part of me I was telling Jason, like, between that interview and the Punk one, I'm just kind of like, when Jason and I were just kind of like brainstorming, like, who the hell is going to headline Mania? And like, who do you put in what matches? I think
I have no idea because it seems like they're scrambling around now just to figure out what they want to do now. Because in my opinion, I got the sense that they actually, it looked like they were getting their shit together with Survivor Series. Mm-hmm. And then that main event was definitely, I thought, okay, WWE is finally, changing their colors, actually, like I said, getting their shit together and putting on a main event like that and having an ending like that. And they actually built up this match the way WWE these days can. But, they pulled it off, and I was really surprised and really happy that I got to see that. And then Monday night, and then Monday Night Raw happened, and it was horrible Raw. And
then the anonymous Raw general manager happened again.
Yeah, and then they barely even freaking did anything with it. And wasn't WWE going on all day with social networks saying, "Oh, we're going to reveal who it is because hopefully you don't remember that it was Hornswoggle." And
the best thing that ever came out of the anonymous general manager, and this is literally like months of having this thing around, and not to keep being a Punk mark, but whatever, I am. When it was, Michael was like, and I quote, "I suggest Punk," and he just lays down on the mat. Well, I suggest you watch me make snow angels.
The one thing I was happy about though, with the reemergence of the anonymous GM, was that we did not have to see a heel Michael Cole again. It was good.
It's kind of like the bad Vietnam flashbacks, because when you remember such a bad angle being rehashed again, I had to go back and, like we had mentioned, Jason and I were talking about when Kevin Nash came back a little bit, and how it was like Triple H texted him like, "Oh, stick the winner." And like, he got this text from Triple H's phone, and then they went back and they're like, yeah, he texted Triple H's phone from Triple H's phone. What?
OMG, Kevin Nash thought he was dead. LOL.
My arms I'm kind of doing like that, like the Jay Leno thing, like that, it's WWE, it's a good guy doing his thing, it's good.
Yeah.
Like
the one thing that I do want to mention about the Vince and Austin podcast thing was I really wish I was a fly in the wall of the locker room when Vince said that today's superstars have no ambition. I would have loved to have heard what they had to say. I understand. I think Jack Swagger made a comment about it, but he basically did the civilized comment to it. But somebody made a screenshot of Vince's exact reaction when Stone Cold said, "I want you all to tweet at Vince McMahon on Twitter and tell him what do you want to see in the product." And Vince's face was perfect.
Well, this is the other thing where he's like, "Hey Vince, how can fans like get in touch with you?" And it's like, you guys push all this social media bullshit, and Vince just stumbles like, like say your fucking Twitter handle, say at WWE.com or whatever.
Yeah,
we tout Vince McMahon.
Yeah, tout me.
And I just love how Stone Cold's like, "Can they email you?" It's like, come on, fire up the AOL.
Can they MySpace you? Can they Friendster you? Can they Facebook you?
All right, I'm sorry, but if I had known the podcast is going to go this way, I would have just like emailed you guys or texted you guys on Facebook early and just said, just do the entire podcast, the two of you, as Stone Cold Steve Austin. Hell, son, can they email you? What? Can they text you? What?
Well, you see, Vince McMahon, I want to tell you this. Your company is a piece of crap. I'm not liking it one bit. I watch your show day in and day out, and nothing gets me excited anymore. I take more piss breaks during the 3 hours of Raw than I do during the day, son. You got your Twitter, you got your Instagram, you got your tout. It's like
It's
hell.
possible that Stone Cold is actually cooler now than he was when he was a wrestler.
Yeah. I saw a really good picture somebody posted that said, "Welcome to the internet wrestling community. I am your leader, Stone Cold." I was like, aha, because he basically he did end up asking a lot of questions to Vince that a lot of the IWC, I guess you could say, have wanted to know. The same thing with. I'm so glad that Stone Cold actually said to McMahon's face, Macho Man Hall of Fame isn't going to happen.
And he really got in his face about it too. He was like, "Are you saying it's going to be this year?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely, and I remember I went on the Mark's commentary Twitter. I'm like, "Oh man, is he dare going to ask anything about Chris Benoit?" Like people got really serious and like, "Oh, that's disrespectful." Why would he do that? But it's honest. Like,
yeah.
I mean, if I'm Stone Cold, why isn't Owen Hart in the Hall of Fame? Like, yeah, just come out and say it's because of his widow.
Yeah. I mean, with the Chris Benoit thing, if he were to mention that, and I'm pretty sure Stone Cold has actually said on his podcast episodes before his thoughts on Benoit Hall of Fame thing, and that's it. Because they make a good point. Like, say if I highly doubt Austin would even want to bring that up, especially with it being a product where they're trying to erase his memory through like name only type of thing. I mean, you could still see his matches on the network, but if he were to bring that up, I don't know how that would have gone. I think he would have done the whole, "I want to ask you another yep or nope question," and Vince would probably say, "I don't know who you're talking about," or "Nope, don't want to talk about it," type of thing.
I think he had actually asked that Stone Cold would have a very promising career on the country music station.
Yeah.
With his Broken Skull rant. I mean, at this point, it's almost like a Howard Stern on E thing.
Yeah.
I would renew my subscription to WWE Network if they came out tomorrow and said, like, Stone Cold now has a permanent, like, he's going to do his podcast from a specific studio on the WWE Network.
And it's not like it would, cost them an arm and a leg. I mean, Christ, just the setup on the show was just the 2 laptops, Stone Cold's recording crap, and then the table, and then the background. Seriously, use the old Yeah, use the old Livewire set for Christ's sake.
Why don't we should lobby for this, Jason. Hashtag Stone Cold Post Livewire. Hell, so I'm listening to Livewire.
I think they should, if WWE was smart, which they're not these days, they would hear such the positive reaction to that podcast that they would want. You would think they'd want to scoop that up and make it either a weekly or bi-weekly thing.
Yeah.
But
imagine if it's Austin gets Monday night immediately after Raw, somebody in the locker room, and then what is it? Friday night, Thursday night, it's Jericho. Talk is Jericho, whether it's pre-recorded at the arena or whatever.
All right, Jason, if we're going to... this is the pathetic thing. We should be brainstorming about Mania, and instead we're brainstorming for wrestling podcast shows. So I'm going to just pitch one at you right now. Why don't you just take Austin and Jericho and a third man to be named later? Because essentially Stone Cold is the Eddie Trunk of wrestling now. Make a show with 3 people and just call it That Wrestling Show. It's not a terrible idea. While I get that silence from my co-host. This is where Jason needs to put cricket sounds in between everything I say, or just give him TV tracks because they'll eat him up.
It's Hall of Fame worthy.
yeah, I got disconnected there for a second.
Sean sounds like he's stuck in a snowstorm.
My face accidentally hung up. On the
I was waiting for the point in the podcast where Sean sounds like he's in a snowstorm just because we're running out of stuff to talk about wrestling related. Sean just starts giving us weather updates.
Do I really sound like I'm in the middle of a snowstorm?
Well, you don't anymore, but you did. You sound like you're in the middle of a storm. This is Sean Smithcamp reporting live.
It's cold.
Back to you, Eddie. All right. Now, Jason, did you happen to get any questions on Twitter for us this week?
Let me go take a look.
Checking the Twitter. Mark's on commentary. Checking the Twitter.
Let's see. At B_Ron7 wants to know. Oh, is this really a thing? He wants to know what we think of the stairs match between Big Show and Eric Rowan at TLC. Is that really a stairs match?
It is. It's a thing.
No,
yeah.
It's not a chair. It's a stair.
Stairs. Yeah, they're having the steel stairs match.
What the fuck is that?
It's so stupid. The dumbest damn thing I've ever heard of. I mean, come on. I'd rather see Mae Young's hand match. I mean, come on. I'd rather see Katie Vick come out with a clone of another Katie Vick and have it be Katie Vick versus the fake Katie Vick to find out which one's the real one. Kind of like the whole fake Taker versus Undertaker or the fake Kane versus Kane. Give me 2 Katie Vicks in the match. Are you kidding me? Have Doink the Clown do the commentary and have Vince Russo all of a sudden come back to write it and have it be, I don't know what it'd be a pole match. I know that. Be like, I don't know, a Viagra bottle, but with Kane's mask on it.
How come we've never had a Divas on a pole match?
Oh, Jesus.
How come that's never happened before?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just ruminating over the whole stairs match. That's what TLC's become now. It's a stairs match.
Yeah.
Is it stairs or a stair master? Here are we.
Let me see. Michael.
Be sure to take the weights.
Michael Sayers wants to know top guy in the next 5 years. Somebody from the Shield, somebody from the Wyatt family. Who do you see from those 2 camps?
I'd have to go with Dean Ambrose.
I want to go with Dean Ambrose, but it's probably gonna be Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
He'll probably be forced down our throats, Cena-wise.
The fact that this is the red flag that I saw with Roman Reigns. He's got something called the Superman punch. Just sit with that for a few minutes, and congratulations, we now have Cena 2.0.
Yeah, I still giggle every single time Michael Cole goes curb stomp, and I'm sorry, but the horrible person in me laughs whenever Seth Rollins does that move, and I've never heard a white man so excited to say curb stomp. So
Let's see. Michael Sears kind of being a dickish. He wants to know, fuck, marry, kill. He's got AJ, Nikki, and actually either or of our fiancés. Fuck. We can't win, Ed.
No, I'm determined.
Uh-oh.
Actually, no, I can't because Paige isn't in here. Never mind.
oh my god, dude, the things I would do to her. Holy crap.
I really shouldn't be doing this right now. My fiance's actually sleeping in the room right next to me.
John, you can't play.
No, trust me, I was on. If you were to you'd shoot the question my way, I'd be like, I plead the fifth. Because I can't answer that. You guys are my friends. I'm not going to say shit like that. Jesus Christ.
She is cooked for Sean, so this can only get awkward. You killed her, but she cooked for you.
I'll just be in the corner, being, slowly masturbating. That's what I'll do.
Picturing you as Lysol from the Chappelle Show. On the Mad Real World, there was the one black guy in the bed masturbating.
You could answer his follow-up. He does have another fuck, marry, kill. He's got the Little Mermaid, Snow White, or Pocahontas.
Oh, this is that easy. All right. So you fuck the Little Mermaid.
Can you fuck the Little Mermaid?
Oh, you can fuck it right in her gills.
The fucking right in the pussy. No.
You kill Pocahontas.
Well, yeah, that's a given. It's bound to happen.
That's your birthright as the white man. That was terrible.
Whatever.
Well, let's face it. We essentially we're the immigrants. We took their land. We slaughtered them. Whatever.
Now you want to kill their animated character.
Well.
She is pretty hot though. I don't know. There's gonna be that white man guilt every time. If I were to marry her, I'm essentially marrying my white man guilt. Well, sweetie, we kind of destroyed your whole race.
You know what diva I would actually not mind, settling down with, and it sounds so weird for me to say this. It's like, because I'd like to get freaky deaky with like AJ or Paige, or hell, bring back Victoria when she was having that crazy, my theme music's by Tattoo stage. But I don't know why, but I have no idea why. But before her character turned all like wicked feminist or whatever, Molly Holly.
Yeah,
I found her sweet. Let me put it that way.
Oh my God, what does Molly Holly do now? I just like seen one of those Where Are They Now specials. And
isn't she like a teacher now?
Sure. All right, can I just interrupt, non-wrestling related? Did anybody, either of you, yeah, all two of you, did either of you see the movie?
The live studio audience.
Did either of you see the movie 10 Things I Hate About You?
Yes.
Yes.
You remember the rich kid?
Yeah.
He has
I already know this. Go ahead.
He has a religion now called Full Circle. He's essentially a cult leader. The guy that stood Stephanie up for a date on Full House is now essentially a cult leader.
I'm just getting a headache thinking about it.
I just wanted to give you guys some perspective. Going back to, significant others in that guy's question. Would anybody ever sleep with Luna? I think that's my real question.
Gangrel. We'll have to ask him when we get him on the show.
Yeah. Next week, when he's on the show next week, be sure to ask him.
You know what's really shitty is when like the whole Punk thing happened and they offered the email and you can email him a question. There was that like fleeting few seconds in my mind where I thought, hey, maybe Jason and I could actually get Punk on the
show. I have an in now.
I love how my train of thought jumped from Chris Nowinski's intern blew off Jason. So immediately I'm like, all right, Gangrel stood us up. Chris Nowinski wants nothing to do with this. I know who we can get. We'll get CM Punk. Show those assholes.
Mm-hmm. You'd have to get in touch with them when hockey isn't on television.
No, I have a great idea, Jason, because our listeners have been so awesome. Remember when they were making those memes for Gangrel and posted them on his Twitter? Why go on Marks and Commentary? Instead, I'm starting the campaign. Marks fans, Start tweeting CM Punk.
Oh, great. Now we're getting blocked.
And I want you to lobby for this. I want CM Punk on this show. Should we have a deadline?
Christmas.
January 1st. I want an answer by January 1st. I want CM Punk on this show.
He'd probably come on like in the imaginary future. He'd probably come on and just fucking, I don't know, not take it seriously at all. Or unless he's a wicked down to earth guy and be like, oh yeah, sure. But
yeah, if he did a fuck, if he hears this and hears what Sean wants to do to his wife.
Well, I just like a freaky deaky with her. I didn't say doing what. Hell, we could have like a really intense game of checkers.
I thought you guys had the pickle. Yeah, that's Jason right now, just sitting behind the computer with like face palming himself, just been like, why? Let this happen.
So can I just say I'm actually really bummed out that Kurt Angle's like, yeah, I'm going back to TNA. Fuck you. Yeah. Could have. Because, oh, god damn it, every single friggin' time this shit with Rusev happens and, that ever so lovely to stare at Lana is talking and all that stuff. And Rusev's all like, look at me, look at my bare feet. I'm Russian, but not really. I always hope to hear Kurt Angle's music start playing and, be like, hey, I've wrestled with a broken friggin' neck. I'm America. I'm taking that belt back. And
you know what? I would only approve of Kurt Angle coming back to WWE if he came out with a T-shirt line that just said "I'm America."
Yeah.
John, again, why are the three of us not working for WWE Creative? All right, guys, we got to sign Kurt Angle. Why? Because Sean has the best idea for a Kurt Angle T-shirt.
I think the reason why none of us would ever work with WWE is because we're smart.
Yeah.
Because we actually really know what the people want. We could lie and go apply for a job and be like, oh yeah, we really like to connect with the kids, and it's all about the kids. The kids just really like John Cena, and we want to produce this product for them, and John Cena's like he's Superman, but not I know we should push Roman Reigns because he has that really powerful fist, so. And we'll get like I don't know, we could bring back Air Bud and he'll be the special guest host.
John, I have one very we're intentionally trying to sound like Michael Jackson when you were pitching that. Devilish.
Ignorant, just ignorant.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
earbud.
Oh man.
It's not out of the realm of possibility of something we would ever fucking do.
All right, can I ask you guys a question now? Worst wrestling, and I hear someone typing, and I hope he's on Twitter. Worst wrestling cameo ever: Air Bud or RoboCop? I want you to vote. We'll get the next.
Oh man.
Hey, Jason, what's your idea for the next Marks on Commentary line of T-shirts? RoboCop and Grumpy Cat. Let's do Grumpy Cop.
Grumpy Cop. Oh man.
Whichever you prefer, RoboCat.
Well, I have a question. Who how they've been doing this guest host crap. Who would be a guest host that you would actually like to see on Raw?
Kind of want to go the obvious one, Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Smith would be fun.
Mm. They might make him like tone down his persona though on there, because say if he went on there around the time that Tusk was going to come out on DVD and be like, yeah, kids, go see this. It'd be like, whoa, what is this? Somehow I just turned into Robin Williams right there.
Oh, makes Mr. Happy.
Conan O'Brien would actually probably be fun.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Until you realize that he's almost as tall as the Big Show. You know what? Actually, this is the legitimate one. Macaulay Culkin.
Oh, Jesus. Good God.
Hands down, the best Raw cameo in the past 10 years was Macaulay Culkin.
You know what pay-per-view I wish they really would bring back? Halloween Havoc.
I've been saying that forever. Halloween Havoc and World War III.
I think it'd be awesome. I mean, they did Great American Bash for a while there, and it was just like, oh, remember this when WCW did it? Oh, you don't? Okay, well, we're taking it away.
All right.
Now, if the whole guest host thing was set in like a different era, and it was like the product we have today, but set in a different time, I think it'd be pretty badass if they had Ernest as a guest host on Raw.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I'd like that. That'd be
I see your Ernest and I raise you Max Headroom.
Jesus.
Max Headroom on WE Raw.
They'd probably make him have a feud with like Al Snow or some shit.
No, and another one, Morton Downey Jr.
Oh man.
Even Sam Kinison. Why was Sam Kinison never on like in WWE in that like picture?
Oh no. Who else could we do? I'd like to see at WrestleMania Jennifer Lawrence come out before a Divas match and be all cute and stuff. and then some shit happens where clothes come off. I don't know.
You really thought this out.
Well, I think things out about her every night. So
if this is actually like a 3-man thing, Sean has officially made himself the Jerry the King Lawler of the trifecta.
yeah, well, the funny thing about that is I don't go after underage girls, okay? You know, he definitely does. Sorry, King, if you happen to listen to this when you're not, switching over from your 27-year-old wife to your 24-year-old wife. But but no, in all seriousness, hey, Jerry the King Lawler, really like your artwork. I'm glad he didn't die.
Sounding like Jackson again. Jerry the King, no.
You know who would be really crazy if they had a guest host? Like now? Bill Cosby. Because you see, I am here on the Monday Night Raw. And speaking of Raw, oh, never mind. I'm not even going to go there.
I don't like the fact that I was at work the other day and that it's Baby It's Cold Outside song, which is the rapiest song of all time.
Oh, yeah.
The two lines that stick out is "What's in this drink?" and "I said no." And one of the customers in my store yells out, "Oh, it's like as if Bill Cosby wrote this."
Don't ask what's in the drink, just drink it.
Outside.
After we have your turkey, I'm going to give you some pudding, and you get to fondle my sweater.
Put my Jell-O Puddin Pop.
I like pudding. Pudding my dick where it don't belong.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the rapiest Mark's on commentary I've heard in a long time.
But we need to stress the fact for those who might be taking our jokes a bit too seriously, rape is not funny. There, I just dwindled the Twitter messages.
Sean, I think they're all still working on hate mail from when I said I'd kill Pocahontas, so it's okay.
Ah, well.
Well then, for Mark's on commentary.
That was the most uncomfortable throat clear I have ever heard.
He's Jason Smith, and this is Sean Springer. Good night.